A very good afternoon to all the viewers. Welcome back to another episode of BW People HR Voices. Today we have with us Ms. Sarita Tripathi, the Chief Human Resources Officer of Finolex Industries. She's an alumnus of IIM Lucknow and has more than 2 decades of experience in leading organizations of consumer goods, agriculture, automobile, telecom, and IT. Before joining Finolex, she was with Capgemini Financial Services and was a part of the India board members. She has also led talent integration and management for one of India's biggest merger of Vodafone and Idea. During her tenure in Tata Motors, she has led the team of plant as well as corporate. She's an executive coach, a people transformation leader, and a certified Tata Business Excellence Model Assessor. Firstly, welcome, Sarita. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
So, for all the viewers, today's conversation is going to revolve around change management at workplace. So, we know, Sarita, that with the pandemic coming in, we've seen the hybrid style of working on the rise. Then, emerging technologies like generative AI, metaverse, they've come into the space. So, change is happening very fast and at different scales. Now that we know that these initiatives are happening at several different scales, how do you think the HR heads determine when a change initiative has to be managed at a departmental level versus at an organizational level? And what factors influence this decision?
So, Savi, let's step back, right? For any change to happen, right? There are always some of the challenging environment factors which kicks in. It can be driven by the internal factors or the external factors. Having said that, let's take a simple example. Say tomorrow I want to have robots on the line, or I want to change the sales marketing strategy, which is driven by data. Now, if you see these two initiatives in totality, if you see the entire transformation and the change management for any organization, these are very small steps, so to say. Right. However, there will be various functions and departments and the stakeholders which will be involved even in this small change. So if you ask me as an HR professional, I don't think it is at a departmental level. Any change is always at the organization level. The only decision factor what organization has to take into consideration is that who will be the stakeholder, which all functions will be involved into it, what technology we will be taking forward, what are the timelines we are looking at, and that's how the entire thing happens. Now, if I see my journey of last 2 decades, and I was part of multiple transformations, whether it was Tata Motors, whether it was Vodafone, 3PT was very important in the whole scenario. Now, what is 3PT? And that's my acronym to it. People, process, policy, and technology.
Okay.
So when you bring these 4 things together, then only you can have a sustainable change.
Right.
So the key anchors for this entire change are twofold when we look at the softer aspect of it, which is the people and the leaders. Right. So that's what will be my take on it.
Thank you. So you mentioned about technology. How do you think the technology, such as, HR softwares or collaboration tools, we know that dashboards today, they've transformed into insight boards. How has this impacted the approach to change management?
See, technology adoption is on the spree, whether it is HR, whether it is IT, whether it is finance, whether it is any part of the organization. The only caveat I would say is we have to be away from the herd behavior. When I say herd behavior, what may work for my organization may not work for another organization. So how do I keep it simple for the end user and still be relevant for the organization is the key.
Right.
Now, if you step back and if you look at and how I define it's a great servant and a powerful master. But if you use it in that sense, for example, simple example, merit increase or promotion, of your employees. In the race of technology, what we have done is we have automated the entire process. it's good to automate. It
Mm.
gets good to enable, because that gives the transparency to the leaders and the managers. But the point is, are you losing the personal touch into it?
Right.
For example, if I send to my team an automated letter which gets generated by the system
Mm.
as a salary increase letter or a promotion letter, how the employee will feel? What about those conversations? What about those personal touch? What about giving that pat on the back and said, hey, you did a good this time?
Right.
So we should not lose that in the whole race. That's point number one. The point number two is everyone should move towards digital transformation, and we ourselves are moving towards it. We are trying to transform and automate whatever is possible, because that gives a different experience to people, to managers, to different stakeholders. Now, when I'm doing that, or when I'm on that journey, how I'm doing it is more important than what I'm doing. Because end of the day, it will touch my people. It will touch my stakeholders. So how do I give that balance? Another thing in HR technology transformation I see is that, are you ready as an organization? Because technology brings in a lot of transparency into the system. Your information is at ease at various stakeholder level. So it cannot be only the journey of a hard aspect, it has to be a journey of a softer aspect as well.
Right. I agree with you, but with these change initiatives coming in, there's always this kind of resistance that comes with the employees. They always feel comfortable with the way they have been working for years, right? So, how can organizations or leaders, how do they assess and address the resistance to change? What could be some communication strategies that they could use to mitigate the resistance? What are your views?
See, change is always difficult. Let's understand that, right? There will always be resistance because you're asking the person to get out of their status quo,
Hmm.
out of their comfort zone. So it will always be challenging. The point is, are you communicating enough?
Right.
So communication is your key to how to enable it at the first level. Many of us feel that doing one town hall across the organization or doing maybe multiple town halls across the organization are good enough. Let's step back. Is it good enough? I'll give you a simple example. Pre-COVID, we had, in one of my organization, I was trying to implement work from home,
Right.
which is one of the policy for employees, right? And trust me, and the policy was saying that 2 days in a month is a policy. The adoption was hardly 5 to 6%. It was not because of the employees, it was because of the mindset of the managers,
Hmm.
right? Because they felt that it may not be effective, it may not be productive, so forth and so on. Come COVID.
Hmm.
The same organization, within 2 weeks, everyone was working from home.
Right.
We actually went back and established some of the approaches how it can be effective. And now it is a norm,
Hmm.
right? So when you have to break that barrier and you have to start on the journey of change, my view is, first is, are you creating enough sense of urgency? COVID created that for us,
Right.
right? The second piece is, are you having the right group of people who will enable this change? Have you brought that group together,
Hmm.
or they are still working in silos? Because when they're together, the energy is multifold.
Hmm.
The third piece is, do you have a vision of your end state? And not only having a vision of your end state, how have you articulated that journey?
Hmm.
What are your small milestones?
Right.
And then how do you do that communication, which is defined not what I'm trying to do as an organization, but what is it in for you in this whole scheme of things? How it will benefit you as an employee, as a people, should be the communication tone.
Right.
Uh, Are you celebrating enough your small wins, or you are just letting it go? And like I said, in the end, that once you have all these criterias, are you pitching for sustainable change? Which means, are you putting your 3PT approach in place, people, process, policy, technology, to
Right.
ensure that that's how the, going forward, your approach should be.
I agree with you completely. I think you spoke about the group of people enabling the change. How do you, as a leader, identify these change leaders within the organization? What kind of qualities do you look for in these change leaders who will actually be the first ones to initiate the change?
See, when I look at change agents, right, across, I don't look at a top two level for the organization. For me, it is across the organization, number one. Number two, as an HR, do I have a potential or the right tools to identify which talent is actually demonstrating those behaviors? And I'll come to behaviors later, what I mean by behaviors. So if you look at these two aspects, I have often seen leaders who talk right, who behave right, who act right in front of senior leaders. But when it comes to peers and the people, it may not be the same experience altogether, right? So we in HR, as a custodian of culture, should be wary about it. Should be able to raise the flags at the right place at the right time. Now, when we look at the different behaviors or the attributes which are important for any leader, so to say, in my view, it is 5. Number one and foremost is, am I having a leader who has time poverty? When I say time poverty, in today's scenario, if I'm very busy, then I'm the most effective leader. But if I'm most busy and I don't have a time for a change, then how am I effective?
Right.
So leaders who are able to step away from time poverty is the first thing which one should look into. The second is the walk the talk, which is very well established now, right? In the change management whole scenario, that if you can't walk the talk, you cannot be a change agent. The third thing in my head is leader who can prioritize and reprioritize. Because in change, nothing is defined. It's an everyday priority how you have to walk that path. So if you are not able to tweak your decisions, tweak your actions on day-to-day basis, you will not reach your change when it comes to defined timelines you have set for yourself.
Agreed.
The fourth thing, which is about decision making. Am I able to make the decision as a leader? And the fifth and the most important is 3C. Do I have a conviction in what I'm trying to do? Do I have a commitment for that? And am I communicating enough to all my stakeholders to make it a success?
Right.
So that's for the leader aspect.
Right.
When I look at people aspect, right? Because leader is what hardly your 3% people in the chain, right? Your 90%, 98% people are actually your people. Now, when I look at change agents, there are again 4 things which I would like to look into. One is, am I open to learn and experiment? The second is, am I open to take the risk? The third piece there is, do I have agility? And agility in mind first, then in action.
Right.
Because if I have agility only in mind, then I will run with speed, but that will not be sustainable in a long run. But if I have agility in mind, along with action, then whatever I will do which is sustainable over the time. And again, fourth, very important, 3 C's: conviction, commitment, and communication.
Right. You spoke about agility. That's very interesting because my next question is related to that. As the CHRO, I want to know from your personal experience, how do you balance the need of agility versus the need of stability whenever you're implementing these changes?
See, I don't see these two as separate. I
Mm.
see that these two as one, which is part of ambiguity. So in the current world where we are today, where technology changes every probably 6 months, I'm not an expert, but would
Happening
like to
every
think,
other week.
yeah. So, so the point is, am I, if I have to deal with the ambiguity, do I have agility and stability at the same time? Because if I can't have agility and stability, I will not be able to implement anything effectively.
Right.
So that's important. And often, like I said earlier, agility is misconstrued as speed.
Mm.
It's actually in mind and action. So it's mindset and speed. It is not one.
Mm.
And you know, the important point here is that how do you introduce that ambiguity into the system, even as an organization? For example, in my two of the assignments, I actually introduced women on the line.
Mm.
It was ambiguous, but it gave me agility and stability both,
Mm.
which actually created a competitive edge within the organization, which questioned the status quo. So HR role, in my view, is more of how do you balance inside out and
Mm.
outside in.
Thank you for
And
sharing.
still,
It was great. And now we'll come to the culture part of it. We know that culture also plays a very important role in the success of changes. What strategies do you think can be employed to align the organizational culture with the desired change? And how do you, as a leader, how do you measure these cultural shifts time to time?
so see, culture for me is outcome of two actions. One is soft, one is hard. When I say soft aspect, it is culture definition with measurables.
Hmm.
The second piece is leadership behaviors. And the third piece is motivation. That's the softer part of it. But the harder part for me is, have I defined what is the time necessary to complete the change? Number of people I will require to do those changes, right? Have I called out my financial results which are expected out of this change?
Hmm.
So the combination of those 6 things is a culture for change management for me. That's how I
Hmm.
define it. Now, if you want to establish a culture of trust, right? Uh, Simple example, then why manager has to approve the leave?
Agreed? Yes.
Employee is entitled to it. Employee, we have to operate from 100% trust, still proven otherwise, right? So that's my take on the overall. But having said that, if I have to evaluate whether I'm going right, obviously there are various culture surveys, climate surveys, which you can do in the organization, do a dipstick, understand where we started the journey, where we are today. But from the HR transformation standpoint, which is from the people side of it, if I have to look at change and the culture, for me, it will be, am I able to identify the talent for critical roles internally, or I have to every time go and dig out?
True.
The second will be, am I the organization who is actually taking the lead in adopting new technology, or I am the follower. The third will be how many open communication forums I have. Do people really utilize those forums?
Right.
The fourth piece for me will be what is my attrition level when it comes to two aspects, work environment and supervisor. Because if my culture is right, then these two attrition should be minimal.
Agreed.
Obviously, collaboration on the various projects will be important, and managers owning up the their own people to create great teams. Like it's said that you go to war with army you have, not the army you might have at the time.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Lastly, Sarita, I want to ask you, most of our viewers, they're HR heads, they're employers, employees. What would be your last piece of advice to them?
For any change management or culture initiative, keep people at the center. Those are your driving force.
Thank you so much, Sarita, for joining us today and giving us your time. Thank you for your valuable insights. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.